particularly in job situations. They set black people up. One thing, many white supremacists have concluded that in most cases, or in many cases, black people, non-white people, act according to their emotions. So they know what buttons to push. They just about know when they're going to fire you and how they're going to go about doing it, because they know when they're going to make you angry. They know how to make you angry. They know how to make you laugh. They know how to get you to relax. They know how to get you uptight. So they say, okay, well, we're going to get rid of that fella today. So we'll have him come in, and we'll start telling him this and telling him that and whatnot. We got our own strategies and whatnot. And we have been studying him, and we know that he has a temper. So at this point, this one thing, because white supremacists always study their victims, and they know more about their victims than the victims know about themselves, all right? The white supremacists know more about me than I will ever know about myself, all right? They make it their business to do that. So they can kind of predict behavior. And in job situations, when they get ready to get rid of a non-white person, they'll say, hey, what we'll do, we'll make him mad, because we know what will make him mad. So, you know, about 9 o'clock today, when he does this and whatnot, you go over and say to him this, and this. Now, that'll get him angry, and he's going to immediately blow up. He's going to start calling names and all like that. And today, by 5 o'clock, he'll be fired. So we'll just set him up for that. He'll walk right into the trap. He won't be expecting it. And this happens all the time.
Yes.
See what I mean? So non-white people should be aware of this. When they get ready to get rid of you, everything is just fine, but now he's got a cousin that needs your job, and he says, hey, well, Henry, I mean, you know, that black guy down there, he's got that position, and he's doing an excellent job and all like that. Say, well, but my cousin needs that job. So how are we going to get rid of Henry and do it all nice and neat? Say, well, we'll make him angry. So you know how these people are. You know, they always got a chip on their shoulder and whatnot. They always want somebody to respect them.
Mm-hmm.
They're real big on respect. So you say something that sounds like you're disrespecting them, he's going to go off. It's not going to be disrespect, because these black people don't even know what respect is. See, they just know what we have told them.
So they set them up, huh?
They don't have a definition for respect.
Mm-hmm.
They think they do, okay? So we'll have them play in our hands, just like they do with everything that we relate to them. That's why we are dominant. That's why we are white supremacists. And that's why they're always victims, because they do not think ahead. You know, they only think about how they feel at the moment. And we'll always use that against them, because they're very emotional people. You know, they fly off the handle real quick. See what I mean? But you got to know what buttons to push. And we know what buttons to push, because we understand them better than they understand themselves.
You're being set up. Yeah.
You know, when you run the kindergarten, I mean, you know your children, all right? And that's what the white supremacists look at the whole world of non-white people. They say, we know how to move these people around. They don't even know they're being moved around. You know, we know how to, you know, set them up for, make them laugh like you wouldn't believe. And we know how to make them mad. I mean, just have them, storming around the place, knocking things over. We know how to do that. See, so we'll just orchestrate it. Anytime we want them to do anything, I mean, we know how to handle them. They don't know anything about how to handle us, even though they think they do. That's why they're in the position that they're in, and we're in the position that we're in. We're white supremacists, and they are victims of white supremacy, just like all their ancestors, because they didn't know anything either.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam rasulullah wa ba'd. In the name of Allah, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon his last and final messenger. As to what follows, family, friends, foes, haters, and hateettes, welcome back to the Feachaz. I greet you all in love and peace and no hatred in my heart. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So before we begin, as the brother Malik says, get them likes up. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Get them likes up. I want to say alaikum salam to brother Walid, and may Allah reward you as well, and may Allah increase you in goodness, and may Allah multiply it a thousandfold for your kindness and your generosity, and may Allah forgive you for your sins. And everybody say Ameen. Everybody say Ameen. And also, I want to say walaikum salam to the brother Jebs, the Jebs. Hayakum Allah. May Allah reward you all. And also, please like, please subscribe, please share. Please hit me up on Patreon. As you know, we got a lot of haters up in here. Also, we do have the mirror sites, which is the Feachaz on library. That's lbry.com. And as well as the Feachaz, the infamous Feachaz on YouTube, because it's just we always getting shut down all the time, right? Well, alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Tika, hayakum Allah. Family, we're another family meet. Alhamdulillah. I've been getting a lot of feedback about these family meetings, these community meetings, and how important that they are and how beneficial that they are. And we want to keep the momentum going, inshallah. So if you know anybody who is interested in these family meetings, please share this with them. We're giving everybody an open platform to talk about very important issues that plague our community and how we can fix them together, inshallah. So today's topic is about talk first, think later. And this particular topic is probably I would say it's like one of the most important topics in the Black community. The person that we just watched is a man named Nelly Fuller Jr. Okay, and this particular person is involved in the psychological realm, and he deals with a lot of these particular types of topics. And what he is mentioning is something that we already know that exists, particularly in the Black community, where mostly, I want to say, Black men in general, they suffer from this um, inability to control themselves when they get emotional, and it comes out over and over and over again. And what this does is that if you do not have the ability to control your tongue, then you're not going to have the ability to control your family. You're not going to have the ability to control your job. You're not going to have any control over your life whatsoever. And you will be easily manipulated if you always wear your emotions on your sleeves, because people will know exactly what triggers and what buttons to push to get a certain reaction, like to elicit reactions from you. So now what we see, as I mentioned before many times, that before, when I was on Facebook and I only had white people and my clients, and I didn't have any Black people, any Muslims, particularly Black people, you know, on my social media, I didn't have any problems whatsoever. Like, nobody was giving me headaches. Okay, you know what I'm saying? That was just the reality. Then it wasn't until I was I started going into, because I was never big on social media my entire life. The only reason why I got social media was to get clients for sales and whatnot. And then when I started inviting, like, getting more social in social media, which is about 2 or 3 years ago, right? When I started this channel, the Feachaz, right? That's when I kind of started going on Facebook and YouTube. I've only been on social media about that long. You know what I mean? With Black people, that is. I've had the Facebook for longer, but I've never had Black people on it. But I want to say about when I started this channel, that's when I started inviting Black people to my Facebook, and Muslims. And then I saw a completely different world. And what we see is a lack of self control from black men when it comes to their responses and emotions. And this comes from this type of culture where we don't want to be disrespected. You understand? The diss culture, you know? Why are you dissing me and whatnot? And this breeds behavior which is totally detrimental and destructive, and you can't get anything done if you can't control your mouth. And the Prophet Muhammad sallam, he said that I will guarantee Jannah if you can control two vessels or two things. The first is your tongue, and the second is your private parts. So, in the history in the black diaspora, because for hundreds of years our speaking was controlled by the enemy. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, like our brothers and sisters who are not familiar with the history I'm talking about, during the times of slavery, it was illegal, or it was a what you call it. Wait, Joe Bass has a question. He wants to know if I can invite Native Dean. They can come. There's no problem, inshallah. There's no problem. They can come, inshallah. I have no problem. Actually, my channel is open. Like anybody can come. I'm not like refusing people. You know, it's people. You know, they're kind of intimidated. You know how it is. They're intimidated by yours truly. But I'll welcome them. It's no big deal, right? But anyways, for those of you who are not familiar, during the times of slavery, what would happen was when the Africans were brought over from Africa to the the Americas, right? South America, the Caribbean, and the southern part of the states, right? The How the trade routes worked was that the slaves would first arrive in South America. The bulk of the African slaves ended up in South America. Okay, the vast majority, right? Then they would creep up into the islands, the Caribbean islands, and finally the Americans, or what we know as the Americas now, because in those days they weren't. It wasn't a country. It was just colonized. It was colonies, right? Then they would finally reach the southern tip of the states like Florida and these type of places, right? So because they're coming directly from Africa, right? The first rebellions you happened mostly in South America, and then the islands and these type of places. You understand? Well, alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Islam in perspective. So when these rebellions started happening, what the slave masters did is that they made it a capital offense for slaves to actually speak. You understand? It was illegal for slaves to speak, particularly from Africa. You understand? So we weren't even able to control our tongues. It was our enemy who was controlling our speech. You understand? So now, not only that, when these the slaves in the U.S., what we know as the U.S. now, right? We know it as the U.S., but in those days it wasn't called the U.S. It was more these type of British colonies. You know what I mean? There weren't states or anything. There's like little colonies here and there. You understand? So when they were brought into these parts, the Africans and whatnot, because very few of them were brought from Africa into the states, because the majority, like I said, the bulk of the slaves were in either South America or the Caribbean, because the way that the route was, right? So they go from Africa, and then they end up into South America, right? So like this. So pretend this is this part of South. Pretend this is part of South America. This part they go here. This is part of South America. Then they would work their way up, and then the Caribbean islands would be somewhere here, and then they work way up, and then America would be here. So the Americas would get the fewest amount of slaves, and because there was such a high demand for black bodies, and the trade routes were depleting the slaves going into America, what they would do is that they would breed black people. They would just breed them like cattle or horses or whatever. Like they would breed them like animals to produce more slaves. So they would get the biggest male with the biggest female and force them to have babies, and they would. That's how they were. That's how they were being kept. That's how they were producing black bodies. You understand? So we didn't have control over our mouths. We didn't have control over our loins. The two things that the Prophet Sallallahu he said, if you can control, it was the enemy who was controlling these things. You get me? So now, when you look at Reconstruction, the Reconstruction period in the States, particularly, and how that particular period, remember, for the foreign brothers or the brothers who are coming from the eastern part of the world as immigrants, right? When your parents can't come here, they come as immigrants. They're looking for a better life. You understand? They're looking for a better life. So they're going to schools to study English or ESL, English as a second language or whatnot. They're studying these things in order to get a better command of the language. You understand? Black people are the only people who are in the West who have never had any type of schooling in English language. Our English language teacher was the whip and the haulers of the slave master. So this is how we were learning English. So it was illegal for us to speak any type of African languages. Number one, illegal, right? That was capital punishment. And on top of that, we didn't understand the language of the slave master, and how the slave master was teaching us the language was through the whip and through the haulers of the slave master. You understand? This was our schooling. This is our traditional schooling. Now you got to think about the traumatic effects that this would have on people who are being bred, because there are certain qualities and traits that you can actually, because if you look at, if you're breeding animals, you know this already, you can breed certain qualities and traits into animals, right, over time, right? So now we have these qualities and traits where we still don't control our tongues or our loins. We don't control it, but it's now redesigned into our own self-destruction, where it was imposed on us in the past. And then during the time of Reconstruction, what happened during this time, when Black people were in fact picking themselves up by their bootstraps, as they say, involving themselves in the political processes for power, had control politically, legal. Well, we can't say legal, but they had control politically for sure, 100%. This is after the so-called Civil War, and after slavery was so-called abolished. This was violently suppressed after 12 years for going to negligible amount of literacy in the Black community, who were teaching themselves how to read the enemy's language. We're teaching ourselves how to read the enemy's language because we didn't have a language. So now we know the enemy's language. So we went from negligible literacy to between 60 to 70% literacy in a time span of 12 years. you know, had political, whatchamacallit, representation, building schools, churches, you name it. All of this was violently uh, suppressed. So again, we lose our voice again. We lose our voice. On top of that, during the Jim Crow period, just looking, you guys ever watch these wildlife shows like National Geographic and stuff? You ever see these type of shows? You ever see like any documentaries on apes and stuff in the jungle and whatnot? Well, the ape, the silverback gorilla, right? From their traits is that if you look a silverback gorilla directly in the eyes, they will attack you. Do you understand? So if you look, if you had looked in this Jim Crow period at a white person directly in the eyes during this period, that was a death sentence. That was a death sentence. So, Bilal, why are you giving this long history lesson? I'm getting to it. Okay? I'm getting to it. So, anyways, now black people have learned these certain traits. You know, these traits from slavery that's being bred into us, these traits from the Jim Crow period, where this type of how we react to people, right? And we don't understand where it comes from because it's not organic. It's not something that we just developed by on our own. These are things that were imposed on us. So as I mentioned before, if a black person looked at the slave, not the slave master, just a white, any random white person directly in the eyes, that was means to even be a death sentence. So when black people, black men particularly, when they look at each other, right? What's the first thing they're gonna tell the other black person? Put it in the chat, please. Put it in the chat. What's the first thing that's gonna happen? Put it in the chat. What do black men do? If I just look at you like, what do black men do? Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother Reaction. How are you doing, Sheikh? Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How you doing, Sheikh? If a black man just looks at another black man, what happens? Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hayakallah Dawood. Hayakallah Dawood. Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. We know, black people know. We know what happens. We just like, what is the response? Because you have to understand where this behavior is coming from. Come on, put it in the chat, people. Let me know. If you're on Facebook, come visit me on YouTube if you want to participate, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, brother Gazepo. Hayakallah. Hayakallah. Thank you. Thank you. That's exactly what's going to happen. Brother Bilal Gajepo, he said, what you looking at? That's exactly what's going to happen. But we don't understand how we got this behavior. We don't know that there's a historical context to it. You understand? That's where we got this behavior. You understand? This is learned behavior. Likewise, exactly. He's catches an attitude and he's ready to square up. So this posturing behavior, this type of aggressive posturing behavior. It's not something that is a natural thing. This is a bred, learned behavior from the enemy. And now that we're Muslim, we have to be seriously looking at the Sunnah, like very seriously, and reflecting on what the Prophet he said. So I want to say thank you, Brother Bilal. Hayakumullah, may Allah reward you. May Allah multiply it for you 1,000-fold. May Allah give you Jannah to the Firdaus. May Allah forgive you your sins. And thank you so much for your generosity. And may Allah bless you so much. Ameen. Everybody say Ameen in the chat, please. Ameen. Everybody say Ameen in chat. When you look, when you get that look in a black community, that is seen as something of aggression. You understand? It's seen as an aggressive move. So with black people, when a black person gives another black person that look, because they've been we've been tortured for like the better part of 2 centuries by just these looks, we emulate the behavior of the enemy. But the Prophet he said, if you can control 2 things, your tongue and your loins, I can guarantee you Jannah. So this uncontrollable emotional reaction is so backwards that we need methods in order to reverse it, realize it, and stop it. Not everything that we do in life or that we witness in life requires a response. If somebody does something to slight you or to diss you, it doesn't necessitate a response. But when you do respond, there is always a lack of thought process in the response. And the reason why there's a lack of thought process is because we have a hell of a lot of miseducation in the black community. A hell of a lot. We were not taught by friendly forces. Our education was not given to us by people who had our best interests at heart. Our education historically has been by the end of a whip or in cuffs and chains. And when you have generations of people who have been brought up like this, and nobody's coming to show them anything better. As a matter of fact, it's in the best interest of the enemy for you to maintain those behaviors. Then what is the solution then? It's a combination of learning our real worth and humility. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And at the end of the day, black men, particularly black men, need to practice more humility and more listening. You know, Allah, He gave us this is it's a kind of like an old saying, a little bit tacky, but it's true, right? Allah gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means we should be listening twice as much as we're talking. You feel me? We should be listening twice as much as we're talking, but it even goes deeper than that. a lot of the times, because we don't sit down and think and plan our responses, and our responses are emotional in nature, we put ourselves in compromising positions, and then we double down on our wrong positions because of lack of humility. You know what I mean? Because we just want to prove that we were right. Whereas if you were humble enough to say that you're wrong, that would be much more honorable, even if people try to slight you for it. Even if people try to slight you for it. So I put the link in the comments here. I want some brothers to come and give us some ideas on how we can curb this behavior, inshallah. But anyways, what I want for the brothers to do today, inshallah, is if there's another brother you know that you argued with, right, within the last week, and if you are on social media regularly, you know you're arguing with somebody, right? Whether you're right or whether you're wrong, I want you to go to that brother who you slighted or whatever and just apologize to him. That's it. That's it. We have to get into the habit of forgiving each other and apologizing to each other. This right here, this one practice of just apologizing and forgiving and this will build so much unity. You know, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, you know, give gifts to each other because it will build love love in the community. If you give gifts, it'll build love. You know, spread the salam because spreading the salam will build love. You know, forgive each other because that will build love. You know what I mean? You know, these traits that we learned of forever slighting each other. I apologize to you, Sister Tika. I apologize as well. I'm so sorry. I apologize as well, Sister Tika. You know what I mean? The posturing in the black community, it must end. If we're going to go anywhere, we have to show a lot more humility. Because this type of posturing and having these domineering thoughts and anything that's rambling on your head, you have to say it. You know what I mean? There's no filter. You feel me? Whatever's going on in your head, you just say it right away. You know, a lot of times when black people disagree with you or they feel passionate about an issue, they try to talk you into submission until you accept their position. You know what I mean? And they think they're doing something. So now that we're a Muslim and we've accepted Islam and we accepted the Quran and the Sunnah and the understanding of the Salaf and whatnot, we accepted these things, right? We use that learned behavior of talking people into submission in Islam. You understand? So now we want to talk somebody to death until they accept our position. Was the Prophet saying something? Was he like that? He wasn't like that. He was not like that. He was showing the people Islam through his actions. Act more, talk less. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother Bilal.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, ya ikhwan. You have to
Hayatullah.
be careful. Be careful, kids. Sorry. Bear with me. I'm not here for long. I'm listening, multitasking here, which is rare for men. So I've got my twins here, my mum here as well.
Mashallah, mashallah.
And about the posturing and the confrontation thing, one of the tools I found very beneficial in diffusing such situations without losing face, just a smile.
Yeah.
Like, it completely detracts from the situation. It's like, oh, what you looking at? Just smile.
Yes.
Like, mashallah, beautiful brother. Why not?
Exactly.
it doesn't take a lot. You don't lose face, and it shifts the tone because someone's coming with a notion of aggression.
Mm,
You cut through that with a smile. It takes it from somewhere else. And then if someone's arguing with you over a point,
mm.
and you are so certain about your point,
Yes.
you really don't know. There's so much, like, knowledge is so deep that you don't know what you think you know. So
Mm.
you don't know.
But you know, this is an excellent point that you're bringing up. And when you have a people that are ignorant, but they think they know more than they don't, then they have to understand that humility is what will get you places. You understand? And perhaps the reason why black people are being humiliated is because of a lack of humility.
Subhanallah.
You know
I
what I mean?
mean, if you think you know everything, you're not going to learn anything.
Exactly. Exactly. You know what I
There's a
mean?
there's a
Go ahead.
there's a statement which goes, "To know that you know nothing is the first step to the path of enlightenment."
Exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly. You know, and
Anyway,
there's this idea that this is something it's prevalent, particularly in black men mostly, right?
yo,
Particularly
sorry,
in
I'm
black.
smiling because I got my kids in front of me.
Mashallah, 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 mashallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Ayakumullah. Allah reward them. I mean, I
I
mean,
mean,
I
I
mean,
mean,
and Allah reward the father. I mean,
I mean,
I mean, yeah. So, but what you're saying is an excellent point about just smiling. That smile, even the Prophet ﷺ, he said a smile is sadaqah.
no.
You know what I mean? And what we find in amongst black men is that they see smiling as a sign of weakness.
Weakness. Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
and the what you call the gangster grill, that's like bravado and masculinity and these type of
The
things. You know what I
snarl,
mean?
the snare
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
the
Subhanallah.
snarl. You know what I mean? Like you could just mean people to death and mean people into into doing what you want, and the
Some of the
world
most
don't work
dangerous
like that.
people I've met, some of the most
Mm.
dangerous people I've met or known have been the ones that smile the most. So
Yep, Barack Obama.
I didn't even mean it like that, but yeah.
Yeah, Barack Obama. You know what I
Yeah, yeah.
mean? He's real dangerous. You know what I mean? So,
Anyway, I'm gonna jump back out now.
yeah.
With more brothers coming, inshallah.
All right, Jazakallah
Beneficial
khair.
chat. Barakallahu feek.
Thank you so
Salaam
much.
alaikum.
Thanks for participating, bro. I mean, Allah
That's no
reward you. I
problem.
mean,
Alright.
I mean,
Ameen.
and
Yeah.
hayakallah, Jazakallah khair. Yeah. So, in terms of uh this type of in the black community, there is quite a bit of aggressiveness from black men against other black men. You know, they don't show anybody else. This behavior is something that is taught. It's um, taught through generations of indoctrination. You know, when in the black church, we were taught that our enemy was God, that our enemy was our Lord and Savior, that black people didn't do anything, that Africa was just a bunch of rabid savages with bones in their noses and spears, you know, running around naked in the jungle, hunting animals. So when you see yourself in these negative lights, and these are the only images that you're being shown, then of course you're gonna act out in these manners. And so the images of black men that we grow up with are images of gangsters and athletes and rappers, and so young black men emulate these type of images. You feel me? So unless we are willing as a community to take major steps in turning that around, then the behavior will just continue, right? So I implore the brothers, right, to first spread love with amongst each other, man. Give salams, you know, ask brothers to forgive you. You know, not everything warrants a response. You don't have to respond to everything. And if you are on your social media, you know, responding to every single person that you disagree with, you not only are you wasting a hell of a lot of valuable time, but you are feeding your own aggressiveness and your own what you call it, uh, your own debaucherous behavior. So I'll wait a few more minutes if any brothers want to hop on in. I left the link there in the what you call it, the description. All right, so we'll just read this comment. But black men are also taught that other black men are their competition as well. That you have to be an alpha male and that there can only be one. No, actually, competition is good amongst men. I have no problems with that. Competition is something that should be encouraged, particularly in black boys. You know what I mean? That we should be competitive. We should be competitive in pretty much everything, right? However, it should be the type of competition that is beneficial. You understand? It should be the type of competition that is beneficial because men, you got to understand that boys develop later than women, right? And what are men or boys usually doing in these developmental years, right? Well, women are already developed. What are men doing? They're involved in activities that requires competition, like sports, playing these type of things. Maybe you know, like wrestling, whatnot. So competition is healthy, right? But when you're involved in destructive competition, like this type of like what we see, what the competition that we see are in our images are negative media images. So that's why we might have the perception that competition thing. But even the Prophet Sallallahu, he encouraged competition. He encouraged competition. For example, compete with each other in making sadaqah. Like the women, he explicitly said, right? Give sadaqah. Explicitly, he said that. Give sadaqah and compete with giving sadaqah, right? Why? Because he saw that the majority of the inhabitants of the hellfire were women, and the reason why they're in the hellfire was because of they're saying that my husband doesn't do this, my husband doesn't do that, so give sadaqah. So and the competition between, for example, Abu Bakr and Umar ibn Khattab in actually giving sadaqah, you know, and doing good deeds and like this. You know what I mean? So, and the Prophet ﷺ used to have, we know the Prophet ﷺ used to have foot races with his wife and whatnot. So, you say, what is the culture and what is it in the culture? Because you find the same problem among East African young men that are raised. That's we mentioned this already. Actually, I'm very happy you brought this point up. The Jebs. We mentioned this on. I did a live about an East African sister who went on Kevin Samuels, and we talked about this particular issue specifically, right? And the reason why uh, East African men uh, who are raised in the West are falling into this problem because the social engineering tools that have been used for hundreds of years against the descendants of slaves are now being used against East Africans, and they have no defense mechanisms against it. They have no clue what's happening. You feel me? They have absolutely no idea what they walked into. So now you have a bunch of Somalian rappers and gangsters and for these issues because they've been indoctrinated the way that we've been indoctrinated. You understand? So we say now that if we are going to get out of this conundrum as a community, then we have to be dedicated as individuals first and as brothers and sisters second to solving this issue in a practical, tangible way. And it can't just be lip service. So we have to find our brothers and our sisters, and just call them up, and say, look, I apologize if I slighted you, this and this and that. You know what I mean? The as particularly the social media arguments that must stop, that must end, and like the brothers Bilal said, we have to show let's smile, show some love. You know what I mean? Earlier this week, a white guy stepped on my shoes, and it sent me down a train of thought. If you know, you know. Yeah, we know. We know. We know. Yes. Particularly in the late 80s or early 90s, there was a trend in the black community where stepping on somebody's shoes uh, could get you shot. That's the type of social engineering that we have now. You know what I mean? So it's just insane. It's totally insane. You know what I mean? But we'll leave it open for. Let's see. I'll put the link up one more time if anybody wants to go up. All right, but this one's for the brothers. The brothers, if anybody wants to come in and join me, please come in. And let me get some of these comments here. Okay. Okay. So I can't say I've ever come across West African men that had that problem. Probably because of demographics. Probably because of demographics. Because there are a lot more, particularly Somalians from East Africa in this. I want to say in general. I don't have any stats in front of me right now, so I'm just speaking very generally. So please don't make a big thing about it, right? But I would say in general, from the continent of Africa, probably the largest demographic out of Africa would be Somalians because of the civil war that happened in the 90s. You know what I mean? So other communities might be negligible. You know what I mean? But in terms of the social engineering project against black people, it is something that is kind of universal. Depend. It doesn't really make a difference if you're from Africa or Caribbean or whatever. It's just the same type of system. You know what I mean? That's if you're an African descendant, you'll be treated as black, and you will get your social engineering done based upon that. You understand? So that's why. Okay, what else we got here? Maybe competition is the wrong word. Black men aren't each other's enemies. You both have to have the same struggle. Yes, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. You know what I mean? But black men, we need to be a hell of a lot more competitive. For sure, we have to be more competitive. You know, what keeps black men from competing. Really, honestly, it's a lack of confidence in black men, and that again, that is because when you are bombarded with these images where every other people group, they have healthy images, healthy families. You know what I mean? I don't see images, for example, of like I don't know, Indonesian twerkers and stuff. You don't see that. This is not a thing. It's not a thing. You know. But on any given day, you'll find a hell of a lot of debaucherous images of black women weaving and sandaling it up, long fingernails, and just showing off their booties and stuff. We no other group is being portrayed in that way. You know what I mean? So for us, what I say is we need to stop consuming the stuff that destroys us. We have to stop that, and we have to prevent our children from doing it as well. You know what I mean? So, Juan, I think that's gonna be it for today. Seems like we have. Let's see. Let me see here. 1 second. You know what? Let me just. Do you guys have time? I want to see if I can find another thing for you guys. If you guys have time, if you guys don't mind waiting a couple of minutes, I want to show you guys something. Okay, just give me 1 second to just find it. Okay, give me 1 second, people. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna show you something. Okay. Now this will have. I'm gonna let you know right now. Language warnings. So if you got your kids, cover their ears. Okay. If you got your kids, cover your ears. Okay. 1 second, guys. Language warning in effect. But if you're watching this, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. You guys ready?
Watch where you walking, nigga. Hey, what you say, nigga?
Watch closely. You're about to experience a nigga moment. Webster defines the nigga moment as a moment when ignorance overwhelms the mind of an otherwise logical Negro male,
What did you say, bitch, nigga? Hey, squeeze it, nigga.
causing him to act in an illogical, self-destructive manner, i.e., like a nigga. Nigga moments are unpredictable.
Hey, wait, man, wait. This is stupid. Hey, you right, dawg. Look, let's put the guns away and go on about our business. Freeze!
But they all end up bad. If they had their own category, nigga moments would be the third leading killer of black men behind pork chops and FEMA. It's a fact. Now let's see how a nigga moment affects a white man.
Frick. Watch where you walking, bitch.
What did you... Wait a minute. I'm white.
Where you going? Don't you ignore me. This is a perfectly good moment to throw your life away.
Yep. Giuseppe said, yep. They're all saying it. They're all saying it deep. The scenario, Jebs, is deep. I know. I apologize for this, for the language, but it's real. Every black person can relate to that, right? Pork chops and FEMA, exactly, right? And you see how they put the white guy. What happens when a white guy goes through a nigger moment? He says, "Wait a minute, I'm white. I don't have to do this." You see what I'm saying? There has to be thought process in your actions. You have to think before you say something and before you do something. You understand?
Yeah.
Brother, be loud.
You see, when I put my statement of saying knowing our worth,
Yeah.
knowing our worth and humility, the reaction of the second scenario, because I can't really speak about it too much.
Yeah.
So you understand what we're talking about? It's like that's knowing our worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Omar. No, yeah, actually, I'm sorry. Go on, sir. Sorry, again, I'm ready for bed now. Yeah, man. No, and you notice they shot at each other with semi-automatics. It's
Yeah.
and they didn't kill each other. Who killed them?
It was the cops.
Tell you that, like, that show was so ahead of its time.
Yeah, way ahead.
I remember it then. I've seen all the episodes. I could quote them. It's
Yeah.
subhanAllah. So yeah, that's like we need to know that we have value, because when we understand the value that we have, we wouldn't throw our lives away like that. We can take being besmirched. We can take a little humiliation. We can eat some humble pie. because our life is
Exactly.
worth more than that.
Exactly.
Wait a
You know.
minute. I'm black. Don't you do that. That's it. I'm better than this.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
SubhanAllah.
I'm better than this.
Oh,
That's so true, bro. It's so true.
SubhanAllah.
You know what I mean? So, and that's really what it comes down to. I was telling Sister Tika, and she agreed. I'll just pull up the comment here, right? Yeah, she agreed. It's a lack of confidence as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's lack of confidence.
So we
You
need
know
to
what I
know our
mean?
worth.
If you don't like, remember I was saying that we didn't learn language from an organic process. We learned it from the enemy.
Oh, yeah. A is for apple. It's
Yeah,
not for
exactly.
akpene or something, you know?
Yeah, it ain't for apple, not ain't.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But
SubhanAllah.
here's the thing: in the black community, if a
Yeah.
black person speaks well and he has proper vernacular and you know what
Allahumma barak like you do.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. But how do black people generally see these types?
Oh, he corny.
Yep, yep, yep. They always belittle excellence.
Yeah.
And what
SubhanAllah.
we have to do is that we have to make corniness and nerdiness a part of blackness. And we're not gonna do that if we can't control ourselves. Go ahead. Gotta go? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Hayakallah, brother Bilal. Hayakallah. Okay, brothers and sisters. I'll leave the you know what? Let's call it a night. It's almost an hour. But Jazakallah khair. Thanks for everybody who participated. Thanks for everybody who supported the channel financially. Thanks for everybody for liking, sharing, subscribing, and thanks for joining me today on this community meet. Jazakumullah khair. I came to you peace and I leave you in peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.